think people who didn't know him may be misunderstanding Charlie. Like, Charlie, he was important. He was hugely important to the conservative movement, but he didn't do it by discouraging debate or trying to tell one faction they couldn't or shouldn't say something, or not saber rattling on something that was like a sacred cow of the administration's. He didn't always do it, but he wanted those discussions to happen. I don't think Charlie would be upset about the debate that's generally happening between, say, Tucker and Ben Shapiro right now in Israel. He would not like how nasty it's getting. You know, he definitely would not support calls to have Tucker, you know, people to stop watching Tucker. Ben's not asking for him to be deplatformed, but clearly he wants him cut out of polite conservative movement circles. He would not be in favor of that. He knew what Tucker was saying, including about Israel, and continued to invite him to Turning Point events. And so I just wanted to tell this story because I think people are misunderstanding. Like, Charlie was all for really robust discussions of very tough issues, including Israel and beyond. It's just he wouldn't necessarily lead them because he did have donors, and he also was very close with the administration. And so I just wanted to say two things. Number one, there was a Turning Point event last July, and many of us were there, and we all saw Charlie. And that was an appearance at which I spent all my time talking about Epstein. It was right after the whole debacle with Pam Bondi promising she's got the file on her desk and she's going to reveal it, and then releasing that 2-page memo saying, oh, there's nothing. There's absolutely nothing to talk about. I don't know what you're referring to with those Fox News hits. You know, they memory hold them. And the FBI got swooped up into it, and it was very controversial. And that is what my appearance was. Not a speech. It was a Q&A. And that is what Charlie wanted to talk about. And backstage, he made very clear to me that he wanted to focus in on Pam Bondi and encouraged me to really go for her. Now, I didn't need Charlie's direction because I'd been going for her on my show. So it's not like this was orchestrated. He had been listening to my show, and he was basically like, please say all of that right here. And that's fine. I'm like, you're leading the Q&A. Let's do this, which is what happened. So Charlie was not at all averse to seeing Pam Bondi take a hit. He was just too polite to be the one personally to do it himself. So, but he knew that the administration wasn't going to like that, and he was not shy about that. He thought that was an important issue. And who was really hot on that issue in particular? Well, Republicans, yes, and young Republicans too, who smelled a rat and just felt like, do we have the same thing with this administration as we've had with other administrations, red or blue, where, you know, important people get protected and only people with no connections are left to fry? So anyway, that was one example. And the second example also relates partially to Epstein and partially to Israel and involves Tucker. So 2 weeks after Charlie died, Tucker had me on a live broadcast he did of his own show. It was on a Wednesday night, and it was about free speech. It was about a lot of things, and definitely touched on Charlie too. And he and I had a long talk that night. It was actually a great show. Here is Tucker describing his discussion behind the scenes with Charlie.
Before that speech that I gave in July, we had a conversation about this backstage right before I went on. And I was fulminating and getting all red in the face like I often do, to my shame. And I was mad thinking about this and thinking about the effort by the neocons in the United States to draw us in to another forever war with Iran. Not a defense of Iran, of course. It's merely an acknowledgement that we've done this before. This happened in Iraq, which we entered into at the behest of those same foreign policy strategists, and it didn't work. And so I was going on at some length backstage with Charlie, and I said, probably not going to talk about that. I'm not going to torture you. I know your donors hate this when I say that. And also Epstein was in the news, and it was clear to me that, Epstein's probably not like a Mossad agent or something, but Epstein clearly had contact with Israeli intelligence and American intelligence and French intelligence, but the only one you're not allowed to talk about is Israeli intelligence. But it seemed true to me, and I had done some work on that. I knew a bunch of people pretty close to that story, so I thought that. And I said that to Charlie, and I said, but I'm not going to say that because I don't want to make your donors mad. I know it's just going to be like an endless flurry of text telling you to stop or you're going to lose a bunch of funding. And he looked at me, I'll never forget it, and said, go all the way. Do it. Go all the way. I said, man, a lot of things I can talk about. I don't need to talk about that. And he said, do it. So I did it.
And here's the thing, Stu. I was recently going through some old pictures to find one of me and Charlie that I knew we took at that event. And not only did I find pictures of me and Charlie, but I found a video of me, Tucker, and Charlie speaking backstage right before Tucker went out. Tucker and I were talking. Charlie came over and interrupted for just a second. And you can hear him on this tape, which I've listened to many times. It's very clear on my phone, less clear here probably as we play it. But he says to Tucker, go Max. He interrupts the conversation because he has to say to Tucker something. And what was so important to him to tell Tucker was, go Max. Here it is.
Go Max.
Charlie wasn't all concerned about Van Bundy taking the heat. He was just too polite to be the one to do it himself. So Megyn Kelly said, I have another theory. Maybe he was being a coward. Maybe. And me saying this is not in any way, shape, or form disputing Charlie's influence. Charlie was a very influential person. He was very popular with young Republicans, and his assassination is something that no one in their right minds would support it. When people decide that rather than having an open debate and rather than using the force of argument, they will now use end result on you, then you have to understand that things are getting really, really dangerous. If people thought to themselves that the only way they win a debate is to silence the debater, then you have to know that things are out of control. So listen, Charlie's assassination was one of the worst incidents to have ever taken place. You build a healthy society when people are allowed to speak out their minds. Remember, I said speak out their minds and not incite violence, because speaking out your mind and inciting violence are two separate things. So Megyn Kelly brought the receipts. He let people see what happened backstage. And for those of you who were the doubting Thomases, who were like, why would people want to take Charlie out? Or why would a government of a foreign nation want to take Charlie out? Well, that might just be the reason. If the government of the foreign nation found out that Charlie, who has been a strong supporter, was all of a sudden re-examining his stance, they might take action. They might decide to cut their losses, because I have seen people like Tim Pool saying that Charlie was a great supporter. Charlie supported the Republican Party. Charlie was all body with Donald Trump. And Charlie was way more useful alive than unalive. Well, It depends on what you mean by being useful. And it depends on what the people at the other end or at the end of the table hope to achieve when you are alive or unalive. Depends. If the people at the other end of the table thought that you being alive is of no good to them, of course, they might unalive you. If the people at the other end thought that you are slowly backsliding, and that might be very, very harmful to their own cause, they might thought to themselves that it's better we stop this thing now before it gets out of control. I'm just saying that people who think that their situation is serious will do despicable things. That is just what I'm saying. Now, in this whole thing, like I've always said before, and like I've given Candice credit for, this whole thing has been very confusing to me. The whole stonewalling and tight lips is really concerning. The whole how quickly the whole investigation was concluded is really concerning. You know, they didn't even bother to explore whether or not there were other people connected to the incident. No, we got the alleged perpetrator, we got the evidence, case closed. It was just one single disgruntled individual who thought to himself that Charlie was doing and saying things that he did not like, and so he had to do what most people are afraid of doing, which is very, very wrong. We're very, very wrong. And like I said before, right, I have watched a few of Charlie's videos, and I know what he says about Africa and African people and Black American. I know about all those things. However, cutting short his life is not something that anyone should celebrate. We all must condemn this kind of act. It doesn't matter whether the person who was being harmed was in your camp or not. Someone like Matt Walsh is a person whom I think is despicable because of the things he said about same-sex people, LGBTQ people, transgender people. He is a very horrible person, but I wouldn't want him to be taken down. I don't believe that someone going out there to take him down is the correct thing to do. No, it's not. It is not the correct thing to do. So let me say this one more time. To all of you out there who was wondering, to all of those people like Tim Pool, who thought that why would a foreign government want to harm Charlie? Well, from Megyn Kelly's explanation, or from the video she has shown to us, you can begin to get some hint as to why they might thought it was necessary to prune the grass now. That is just my own take.